folks, welcome to Fiddlehed Fiddle Lessons. We're going to learn how to add variation to an Irish reel called the Banshee. This lesson is part of the Irish Fiddle Variation course. So here's the version we're going to learn. Cool, so now that you heard that, let's learn how to do it. So the way this is going to work is that I'm just going to play the basic version that I've already taught, and then I'm going to show you what I added. I'm not going to go super into the basic melody. I'm just going to focus more on what I added, assuming that you already know the basic melody. All right, so if you don't, I recommend you pause the video and go learn and practice the basic version of the Banshee first. But assuming you already did that, we'll just jump into it. So we're going to look first at the first quarter of the A part. By the way, if you're new to Fiddlehed or to how this works, there'll be play along tracks for each quarter on the Fiddlehed page on the Fiddlehed site. Okay, so looking at the first quarter of the Banshee, we have, this is the basic version. So in that first long note, I'm going to add a roll and do, and so basically I'm going to turn this 3-3 open, 3-3 open into And so I have a separate lesson on rolls, so I'm not going to detail too much, but what this roll is 3-4-3-2-3. It's a little bit delayed roll. I think of rolls as being delayed or front loaded, like right in the beginning. So it's a little delayed. And so the core principle of the course, in case you don't already know, is we alternate between basic and variation. So we could create a little loop like this. All right, so let's slowly loop that together. For more advanced players, we can speed up that roll. Whether or not you could play it that fast, the important thing to remember is that you practice that way, basic to variation, so that it becomes a part of you. So it becomes very natural, and so that you start to see how to add variation on your own. If you're constantly this way, when you encounter any other music, it should open, something should go off in your head, being like, oh, I could add the roll there, I could add a double stop there, whatever. It doesn't even matter if you're doing Irish fiddling or not. It's the process I want you to get of being creative with music. Especially, you can't do it with a tune you just learned. It has to be something you already know, and that's why I ask you to learn the tune first. All right, so I think that's the main thing I added to the first quarter of the Banshee. It was just that roll. I try to keep the variations I added in this course somewhat simple, so that you add just a couple of things to a tune with a lot of repetition, but then, you know, it opens the door for you to add more. You can then take the ideas I presented and change them, do your own thing as you like. You know, find your own voice as a fiddler. So in the next part, the second quarter, basic was. All I added was it's kind of it's either a grace note or a cut, the way, depending on how you look at it. But for these two D1s, I'm putting a quick 3 in there. There kind of is like a cut. It's like a long note that's being cut by this thing, and in slow motion, D1, 3, 1. That whole phrase. That's the 4th bar of the Banshee, or it's part of the 2nd quarter of the A part. I'm going to slow it down more so you can hear it. Okay, so you can go and practice that with the play along track. Okay, so the 3rd bar is the basic was just the same as the 1st. And so what I added here was, instead of the roll, in this 3rd quarter, I added something simpler. I added just a melodic variation. I just added 3, 2, 3, open. So instead of a long D3, followed by D, I added 3, 2, 3, open. I like to think of that as melodic variation, adding or subtracting notes from the scale. All right. So if you know the scales really well, you know how I'm always saying to you to practice the scale before the tune. Forgot to do it this lesson. Shame on me. But if you do that, then it'll help with adding melodic variation, because you'll have a better idea what your options are for adding notes. So again, the 3rd quarter. And then added more melodic variation here. So that phrase ends with 3, 1, 3, and I added an open A in there. Instead of 3, 1, 3, 3, open, 1, 3. Here's the whole 3rd quarter broken down with variation. A little faster. Lots of different ways to bow it. So there I did something called Georgia Shuffle. It's notated in the sheet music, but basically we start with slur, 2, and an up bow, and basically after that we're gonna have a down followed by 3 slurred up bows. So Georgia Shuffle's hard. I have lesson on that for you, so I would practice it on scales first. And then eventually you can do it on tunes. So it's kind of interesting note here. So Georgia Shuffle is kind of an American thing. Obviously, I don't think there's a Georgia in Ireland. Maybe there is. Haven't been there though. And but it works. And part of this thing about this course that I'm giving is a unique course in that it's not a musicological dissertation on ornamentation. The point of it is for you to become creative as a musician, learn to conduct little experiments to see if these variations work. And so this happened to work in my version using the Georgia Shuffle, though I don't think it's you would hear a very traditional purist play it that way. So, but I'm showing it to you anyway, and also because I think a lot of people who are interested in old time and other styles, bluegrass, are also interested in Irish and vice versa. And so I like to make these little connections. So again, I'm going to do that slowly, 3rd quarter. And then here's the 4th quarter basic was. And here's what I did. I just added 2 things. Instead of open, low 2 in the beginning, I converted that open, low 2 to a triplet with 1 in the middle. So So triplets are a nice, if if you get a feeling for them, basically you can add triplets by replacing, when you see certain combinations of 2 notes can be replaced by 3 to create a triplet. I have a whole lesson on that, but sometimes you can just play a note in the middle to create a triplet. So, and then the ending is similar to the ending of, it's the same idea as the ending of the second quarter. Adding that cut. Let's move forward into the B part. So the first chord of the B part basic was, and then I did this variation. So I added a roll to the beginning instead of, kind of similar to the beginning of the tune. And it's, so here's the roll, 3, 4, 3, low, 2. And then basically you would speed that up. All right, so rolls are one of the harder ornaments, so you really have to be patient when learning those. I would do those last out of all the ornaments I teach. But anyway, you could do that in this point. And all these things, I feel like I need to say this with all the tunes. These are just suggestions. You probably know that already, but in case you didn't, these are all just my suggestions. There's nothing authoritative going on here. There's thousands and millions and infinite ways of doing all these tunes. And that's actually what I really want you to get from that, is how cool that is. Isn't that amazing? Oh, Nelly! Yeah, I mean, sorry to fall off the deep end there, but it's really true. With fiddling, you could play a tune for an hour and just reinvent it in the craziest ways. And in fact, I'm gonna teach that eventually. Okay, so let's get through this, getting a little sidetracked. So the basic of the second bar of the B part was, and I added a similar cut in the way that I end the second and fourth chord of the A. So instead of, I'm cutting with the 3 there. Why with the 3? I don't know, it sounds good. You can try it with the 2. Doesn't really make much of a difference. Maybe if I slowed it down. There's the rub. If you slow it down, you'll start to hear the tone more. Here's low 2. But you know what? If I speed it up, you won't be able to tell the difference between any of them. I just did 3 different fingerings. So, but try out the idea I presented. And then if you do read sheet music and you do encounter variations, it's kind of cool to at least try what they've done. But I will say that anytime you learn and you learn from reading, take away those variations when you first learn it. And I call that process subtraction. And it's very valuable to be able to do that, to be able to hear a core melody and not just automatically do the variations. So, and I'll circle back to the basic idea of going between a basic and a variation, basic thing and a variation thing, because that will allow you to discern what the core melody is in something on your own without my help. Okay, I want you to walk away from this and be able to extract the core melody from some highly variation version of something, and then do the opposite. Take a simple version of something, create your own variations. Okay, enough talk. Almost done. Second chord of the B part, basic. All right, and then in my version, my variation. So instead of, in the beginning of it, I'm going to add a triplet. All right, and you can add a little bit of grit to make the triplet give it a nice feel. Hear that little bit of press. I have a whole lesson on triplets and adding that. And instead of a long E low 2 1 next, we're going to go E low to, E low to 1, 1, 1. So E low to A1, E1, A1. So this whole bar, and then we end with, which we've already done. All right. The third quarter, that's the basic, and all I added there was the cut again. All right, and then the fourth quarter of the B part is the same as the fourth of the A. So apologies for you, those of you who want these things to be way more packed with variation. I kept it simple and somewhat repetitive because what I really want you to do is master these. You know, I want to give you fewer choices so that you really get them, and then constantly say, hey, now that you've got it, you can go and add more. All right, you can do the third quarter different than the first. Does that make sense? You know, now that you get it, you have a better idea what you can do. But I don't want to overwhelm you at first. That's why I've made these versions a little simpler. That's it. Thanks so much. Believe it or not, I had a really good time doing that. But I always do, because it's fun, because I know you're there. I know you're there learning and really having fun and loving what you do. And that's what I hope people do from this. You know, I'm just I want to share the experience of creating music, and I really mean use the word create, you know, and express yourself with it. And these variations will help you do that. See you next time, folks. Go to fiddlehed.com for a progressive, step-by-step course outline, color-coded tabs, play-along tracks, sheet music, and much more. Thanks for watching the video. Excellent! And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.